The majestic, all-powerful Maykr species from the realm of Urdak were incredibly important in the Doom timeline. Over millennia, they aided and guided the mortals they encountered in the earthly realms, yet their story and history is not as simple as they would want humanity to believe. Over many wars across realms, the torture of innocent souls, and the power of one human that ripped and tore his way through hell itself, this angelic species were responsible for a lot of good across the timeline, but also a lot of the bad. Where did these angelic beings come from? Just how powerful were they? And how does their story end? Here, we explore the lore and story behind the Maykr species in Doom. As Davoth, the first primeval being, wandered across the void, the realm of Urdak sprang from him, a heavenly realm that would become one of the most influential and important locations until the end of time. This being had created his second realm in order to aid his first, the realm of Jakad, and with it, he created a new species, the Maykr. The Maykr were quick to learn about their home realm, and as their language advanced, they took the name of Urdak to mean paradise or heaven. This realm had also been created to exist in an anchor state, a realm always inverted to Jakad. What existed between them was up to Davoth to decide. In their paradise, the Maykr species thrived. At the top of their hierarchy was the Khan Maykr, a supreme leader that led her entire species. This was the most important of the Maykr at any time, and her creation was something of legend. To control the evolution of the Maykr, the Khan was created in a process called the Singularity. Although still shrouded in mystery, what is known is that the Singularity had several lesser Maykr fused together with the essence of their god to form a Khan. In doing so, the soul data of every major Maykr that had ever lived or died was combined to form the optimal leader, destiny bound to lead her species through the next age. This process was not without its limitations. The singularity did have to occur once every 10,000 Earth years, otherwise there would be no evolution of the species, and the Khan would fall to corruption, mental and physical decay. Under the Khan in the Maykr hierarchy were the Seraphs, local advisors of Urdak. Below them were Maykr Angels, speakers and watchers for the Khan. And at the bottom were Maykr drones, almost the children of the realm, too vulnerable to leave Urdak. This species were all led by the Khan Maykr. They also existed within a neural matrix, almost like a hive mind in which the Khan Maykr sent out her commands to the rest of her species. These individuals did have their own thoughts and desires, however, they could not refuse an order from their Khan. Davoth had created Urdak and the Maykr species for a reason. His first realm of Jakad was, in his view, superior to Urdak. Within the lands of bounty and prosperity, he had gifted the citizens there with burning ambition without restraint. Yet, in all of his power, he could not cure them of their curse of mortality. He was immortal, but could not find a way to replicate this on his first creations. He loved them, and it pained him that he could not help them. So, the creation of the Maykr and their machine-like hive mind was his solution to the problem. They would find the secrets of immortality for him. With this request, the Khan Maykr and her species got to work. In their search, they uncovered the secrets and mysteries of the realms. They developed incredible technologies and machinery, and Urdak developed into a hub of knowledge and amazement. The Maykr themselves were also a creation of Davoth, and they too suffered the same mortal limitations as the denizens of Jakad. They had been crafted with a much longer lifespan, and this allowed them to all work together to seek out this cure. For many years, the Maykr worked on the discovery of the cure of mortality, and eventually they found it. Over this period of time, they looked upon Davoth and Jakad and watched as their lord and creator fell from grace. The death of his creations had taken a toll on the god. He grew cruel and bitter. He feared that he would ultimately end up alone and punish those in Jakad who failed to actively seek out this cure. This behavior scared the Maykr, and they decided to act in order to save themselves, the new realms between Urdak and Jakad, and ultimately, all life itself from his wrath. The complex, almost machine-like matrix of the Maykr hive mind was incredibly powerful. It had the ability to predict every variable of every possible future timeline. With this knowledge, the species surveyed these timelines and decided what was best for themselves and the realms. Although there were almost infinite possibilities, they saw that Davoth was a danger to the future. To protect them, the Maykrs worked together, and with their incredible power that almost rivaled Davoth's, they formed a seal around the realm of Jakad. In doing this, he and his denizens were trapped there, and the realms outside were safe from his rage. Having done what they believed to be the best for the rest of existence, the Maykr returned to Urdak and continued to thrive. They often visited the earthly realms and continued to explore and attempt to understand the realms. Their research into life and death had led them to the discovery of life spheres, a sphere that contained the memory, intelligence, will, and essential nature of a being's consciousness, an object they could use to expand their own lifespans. Within Jakad, Davoth had not taken his betrayal lightly. The servant race he had crafted had turned against him, and he planned to do everything in his power to get his revenge. Consumed by his fury, his rage spread out into the entirety of Jakad. The clear-watered pleasure lake spoiled into the blood swamps, the Palace of Groans grew over the Ardenite Gardens, and the population, once full of hope that Davoth had loved so much, twisted into malevolent demonic entities. As for Davoth, he transformed into the Dark Lord. The Maykr at first believed they had contained this problem. However, Davoth's anger did not fade over time. It instead increased, and he threw all of his power against the walls of his prison, and cracks formed into the earthly dimensions. From Urdak, the Maykr watched as demonic hordes flooded through, murdered and tortured innocents. So they decided they had to act again. With all of their power, the warriors of Urdak re-entered Jakad and they fought against Davoth and his twisted population. At the height of this conflict, Davoth fought against the Maykr at the top of the Pyramid of the Lost, and in one quick motion, one of his opponents ripped out the life sphere of the Dark Lord. Instantly, Davoth, the Dark Lord's lifeless body tumbled to the bottom of the pyramid as the one brave Maykr held the life sphere of his creator in his hand. This sphere was what remained of Davoth, and as he held it in his hands, Davoth's power flowed into this Maykr and transformed him into something new. He was elevated in every way. He became a god and the new ruler of all. To the Maykr, he was referred to as the Father. At his side, a seraph, Sama Maykr, begged the Father to shatter the life sphere of Davoth. Despite all of the pain he had caused, the Father could not bring himself to destroy his Maykr. Instead, the Father traveled to the blood swamps and rose high above to the Temple of Souls to store the sphere. This region did exist within Hell. It was, however, constructed on top of a fragment of Urdak. To end this conflict and chaos once and for all, the Father used his new powers and formed another holy seal. This protected Urdak from any of Jakad from entering or stepping foot on the Maykr's realm, and it sealed the demons of Jakad within their realm. Davoth had been sealed within Hell, but on a piece of Urdak. This meant that all he could do was wait and plot within his sphere, his creatures unable to step foot on the land he was trapped on. This was a completely new age for the Maykr. Not only were they free from the demonic corruption of hell, but they also had a new leader, the Father, once one of their own, elevated into a completely new level. The Father was a strict but fair leader. He wanted to create new realms and worlds for civilizations to grow and thrive. The Maykr wanted to help these new species, and so they developed interdimensional slipgate teleporters to travel into the earthly realms to meet and guide them. By the Father's side were the Seraph. They helped him in his work and assisted in his research. Despite their importance, after an unknown incident during the Battle of Isengard, the Father stripped the Seraph of their wings. In atonement, they built the Luminarium. The Seraph were responsible for the many marvels of the Maykr species, machines that even contained the terrible energies of the very essence of life. Just under the cornerstones of the Luminarium, quantum engines of creation stirred. These interdimensional structures span in and out of existence to form the energy needed for this place. Although the Seraph had attempted to atone for their actions, the Father ordered that all Seraph were to serve any who entered the Luminarium, with a code that ordered they serve all who arrived equally and favor none. The Luminarium became a very important location in Urdak, and it became closely linked to life spheres and their use. In the age of the first Khan Maykr, she fell during the siege of Khazad-dûr. Her life sphere was quickly taken to the Luminarium, and the Seraph used their incredible power of this place to restore her. Returned to her physical form and in full power, the Khan Maykr led an army of Maykr back into battle. The Maykr were a species that lived for a very long time, and their deaths were an awful experience. As they matured and fell closer to death, their bodies went through a process called the Transfiguration. This effectively put them through physical and mental degradation. To combat this, the Maykr developed a new process that allowed them to voluntarily pass away and resurrect. In essence, it expanded their lives as long as they performed the process, a process that relied on the power of the Father to hold off transfiguration as long as possible before they were reborn. The ages continued to pass as the Father created new worlds and life. The singularity occurred every 10,000 human years, and each time, the Maykr species evolved for the better with their new knowledge and customs. The Father, of course, offered his power to allow this process to continue. Within the earthly realms, the Maykr came across the planet of Argent D'Nur. The population here did not fear these angelic beings that came from the skies, and they listened to what they had to say. The Argenta were amazed at first that no sword or shield could cut through their ethereal flesh. They moved through time and space with their almighty power. The Maykr Angels offered the Argenta peace, prosperity, and new technologies to help their civilization grow. They also offered a place for their undying souls to travel to upon the death of their mortal shell, a place in the heavenly realm of Urdak. All the Argenta had to do was worship them. The Maykr had encountered countless species on their travels, and as almost immortal beings at this point, they looked down on the mortals they discovered. They became arrogant and believed they were better than them. They deserved to be worshipped. The Argenta already worshipped another god, but many of them felt that they had been abandoned. As a result of this, many turned their worship to the Maykr, and as many years passed, the Maykr Angels fulfilled their promises to this civilization in return for their worship. The Argenta boomed, they constructed grand cities, received the guidance of the Maykr, and were taught the secrets of space flight. Out in the universe, the Argenta sought out new planets to settle on, and for other sentient life that they could spread the word of the Maykr to, of how the Father had created the heavenly realm of Urdak, the earthly realms, and everything within creation. All he wanted was their worship. A story slightly altered by the Maykr to improve their image of what had actually happened. The Khan Maykr split her time between realms, and was offered information by her Maykr Angels that had settled on newly discovered planets of any developments. As they performed their duties well, they were offered orator rings as rewards. The more rings they had fused to their armor, the higher ranking they were. The Maykr drones performed their duties across Urdak, and the Seraph worked within the Luminarium. As aeons passed, the Father worked on the realms. He had created whole worlds with life, and he had even attempted to create gods to govern over the many realms he had crafted. But he soon became frustrated with his own divine errors, as some of these creations did not act in the way he expected them to. These errors were stored in the Temple of Souls. He also saw that hell continued to slide into discordance, and he feared that if the creatures within did break free and manage to steal his power, it would destroy all of the hard work he had done. The Father believed that he had done everything he could do in his time, and to monitor all of the realms with his full attention, he decided to withdraw from the physical realm. To do this, he asked his most loyal seraph, Sama, to transform him into a life sphere. Sama, of course, accepted the request of his leader, and he placed the Father's life sphere within the Luminarium. For the ages to come, the Maykr traveled to the Luminarium to pray to him, and used his essence in their rituals. For many, many years, the Maykr guided the lesser species they encountered, and word spread of their presence across the realms. Angels that offered a place in a heavenly realm in return for worship. Within the Luminarium, the Father's power was still used to allow the Maykr to thrive. He, however, heard the whispers of the Dark Lord from his life sphere. Davoth was trapped within the Temple of Souls, but his presence wandered the realms. He sought out those who could be easily corrupted in order to influence them to do his bidding. The Father saw cracks form across the barriers of hell, and asked that Sama Maykr take his life sphere to somewhere no one would find it. Sama again obeyed the orders of his master, and he took the Father's sphere into the Temple of Souls. Here, he placed him next to Davoth. Only a being of high power could enter this place. The disappearance of the Father's life sphere spread panic across the whole of Urdak. They were vulnerable to the transfiguration once again, and the reigning Khan Maykr had no way to retire. She had to reign until another Khan was born, yet this could not happen without the essence of the Father. It appeared that the Maykr had no ability to extend their lifespan anymore. They had essentially become mortal. From those of the Maykr that surveyed every possible future timeline, the Khan Maykr was informed that one constant existed across all of them, that of a chosen one that would threaten her rule, someone that would bring an end to the Maykr. The disappearance of the Father, her mortality, and her need to stay in power opened her up to corruption, and then she heard the whispers of the Dark Lord from his prison. Unaware that these were the whispers of the fallen god, the Khan Maykr leaned into these whispers and used them to construct a machine that would help her discover this chosen one. The divinity machine was built within the Chapel of Purity in Taras Nabad, a holy city and the capital of Argent D'Nur. The Khan Maykr told the Argenta that this machine would cleanse those who used it of their impurities. What she failed to mention was that during its construction, she had followed the guidance of the Dark Lord's whispers into the mountains of Encremon to receive a piece of his essence in order to power the machine. Under her orders for a purification ritual, the Argenta entered this machine. Upon its activation, it not only destroyed their physical bodies, but it also destroyed their souls. Generations later, during the time of King Novik on Argent D'Nur, a human appeared. The Argenta had not encountered humanity and had no idea where he had come from. He rambled of blood, guts, and demons, about a realm of darkness, horror, and death. The Khan Maykr resided on Argent D'Nur during this time, and she ordered her angels to decipher this language so that she could communicate with the Outlander. Upon learning his tongue, the Khan became intrigued by what he had encountered in Hell. This was a place of power that could save her species. The Outlander showed himself to be very capable in combat, and he later joined the strongest army on Argent D'Nur, the Night Sentinels. This army had once fought for the old gods of this world, the Wraith, and they still used the power imbued to them in combat, Wraith energy. Although the worship on this planet had shifted to the Maykr, they still stood guard over their old gods. On the eve of the Black Star, swirling, fiery gates formed out of nothing and demonic hordes flooded from them. The demons had broken their seal and their waves of evil swelled from the obsidian forests of the Argentine overlands, and the city of Telerum fell under their numbers as the once safe planet of Argent D'Nur became the first of many planets invaded by Hell. And thus, the unholy wars began. The Outlander's warnings had been true, and just as fast as the demons arrived, he fought with them as a member of the Night Sentinels. The Khan Maykr watched over this chaos as this powerful army attempted to protect the Argentine people and cities, yet she cared only for the survival of her own species. They needed a power source to sustain them and Urdak. As the war progressed, the Khan Maykr asked the Order of Daig, 3 Argentine priests, to study an energy source from Hell. After their capture and study of the foul creatures from the malevolent realm, the priests relayed that Hell essence was powerful. However, it was formed as a result of the torture of the souls that had arrived in Hell after their deaths. This was a promising avenue to explore for the Maykr species. Her workers also discovered that if Hell essence and the power of the old Argentine gods, Wraith energy, were combined, it created an incredibly powerful energy source, Argent energy. As this war continued, the Khan Maykr was contacted by a Dark Lord of Hell, and it offered her a proposal. If she could supply fresh souls into Hell on the battlefield, she could construct factories of her own within Hell to extract Hell essence from these new souls and refine it into Argent energy with Wraith energy. This was the solution she had looked for to save her species, and as she could not enter Hell herself as a result of the Father's seal, she captured slaves, sent them to Hell, and had them construct these nightmare locations for her. For some time, the war continued and new Argentine souls fell and arrived in the city of Necrovol, home to the factory of tortured souls. In here, their souls were extracted and used to create Argent energy, and what remained of their physical form was twisted and sent back to Argent D'Nur to fight for Hell. This new wave of energy restored and sustained the Maykr and Urdak. They no longer feared transfiguration. However, the Khan Maykr had existed well past her 10,000 year limit and continued to hold onto her throne. Her connection to Hell was strong, and her corruption increased. The war continued on as huge chunks of Argent D'Nur were overwhelmed by demonic corruption. The Khan Maykr also ordered for more of the Night Sentinels to enter the divinity machine, still in search of the Chosen One. As the Black Star reached its zenith, the Night Sentinels continued to fight against these hordes. Within Taris Nabad, a new foe emerged from the fiery portals, the Dreadnought, a demonic titan of immense power. From afar, Sam and Maykr watched as these brave warriors fought against this new wave, but even the Outlander could not take it down. This seraph feared for the end of his species and also heard the whispers of the Dark Lord. The Khan Maykr will lead us to ruin. Under the thrall of the Dark Lord, Sama reached out to the Outlander and brought him to the Chapel of Purity. He then reversed the polarity of the divinity machine and placed the Outlander inside. What came out was something new. This machine had destroyed those who had entered before him, but as the polarity had been reversed, this human Outlander was blasted with waves of energy from the essence of the Dark Lord that powered the machine. This Outlander became a new, godlike being. He became the Doomslayer, and with his newfound ability, he returned to the battlefield and took down the Dreadnought. Within the Temple of Souls, Davoth believed his plan was on track. The Maykr had betrayed him, and over this long period of time, he had manipulated them into creating the very thing that would destroy them, but he still had some work to do. The father watched over his realms and felt that Davoth's manipulation and the creatures of hell had become too powerful, and he asked Sama to once again send him somewhere that he would not be discovered. In compliance, Sama transformed the father's fear into an artificial intelligence, an AI that was unaware of what he was to keep him safe from Davoth's minions. Then, Sama left for planet Earth with his leader. The Doomslayer's enhanced abilities allowed him to rip and tear his way through the demonic hordes that plagued Argent D'Nur. This angered the Khan Maykr. Sama had not asked for permission to use the divinity machine, but he had disappeared. This turn in the war also meant that less Argentine souls were sent to her for her power supply. She and the Maykr loyal to her saw the mortals that were massacred as a worthy sacrifice to sustain her species. They were mortal, they should be honored that they had been gifted with the presence of the Maykr. In their fight against the demons of hell, the Night Sentinels descended into the Twisted Realm, and on this expedition, they came across one of the factories and noticed that it was of Maykr design. They had been used by the Maykr, and the souls of the fallen had been twisted and used by what they believed were their saviors. Upon their return to Argent D'Nur, the Night Sentinels called out the Khan Maykr and her kind for the atrocities they had committed against the Argenta. The Maykr and Order of Daig denied these accusations, and another war erupted. A civil war between those who allied with the Maykr and those with the Night Sentinel. The Night Sentinel even fought against each other and used the power supplied to them by the Maykr to become stronger. To stop the Maykr, the Night Sentinel formed a plan. They at first planned to wake up the slumbering Wraith to help them fight, and they also planned to re-enter Hell to tear down the Soul Spire that sent up Argent energy to Urdak. This plan quickly failed. The Maykr were intelligent, and they had one of the Argentine priests manipulate Commander Valin of the army with the death of his son. With the promise to see his son again, he handed over the keys to the sleeping Wraith. The Night Sentinel were also unaware of the allegiance these priests had to the Khan Maykr, and for the second phase of this plan, the priests offered access to a teleporter to enter Hell in order to tear down the Soul Spire. When the warriors entered, they found that they had all been scattered across hell, miles away from each other, ready to be picked off one by the demons. As the years passed, large chunks of Argent D'Nur were absorbed by hell. The wraith that had been captured by the Maykr were chained, and their energy was used to continue the creation of Argent energy. This was what the Khan Maykr had wanted for her species, survival, but at the cost of the mortals she and those that served her had once sought to aid. With this continuous influx of Argent energy, the Maykr species thrived, even without the essence of a god-like leader. The Khan Maykr communicated with her Maykr Angels on planets that had not been attacked by hell. The Seraph remained within the Luminarium and studied the realms, and the drones waited within Urdak until they could leave. The Khan Maykr had fallen to the corruption of hell and the Dark Lord. In her mind, the sacrifice of many was worth it. However, the flow of wraith energy suddenly stopped one day. Upon her investigation, she learned that the Doomslayer had survived her trick and destroyed the well, her main energy source. In response, the Khan Maykr turned her sights to his homeworld, planet Earth. If she could not have the energy of the Wraith, she would just take all of the souls of humanity instead. Under the orders of the Khan Maykr, the Argentan priests, now corrupted into Hell priests, prepared Hell gates across all of Earth for an invasion to begin. Not only would this restore the flow of energy the Maykr needed to survive, but it was also a personal attack against the Doomslayer. As the days passed, Earth was overwhelmed by Hell's forces, yet the Khan Maykr once again underestimated the power of the Doomslayer. She watched as the human traversed across the realms, assassinated her priests, and stopped the invasion. Without them, the Khan Maykr had to get creative again on how she could finish off Earth and restore Urdak's power supply. In a last-ditch attempt, the Khan Maykr started a ritual to awaken the Icon of Sin. Unknown to her, the Doomslayer had encountered the traitorous Sama Maykr on his path, and this fallen seraph had guided and helped the human against her. As the ritual commenced, the Doomslayer entered the ritual chamber and stabbed the heart that the Khan Maykr had used to control the icon. In doing so, she lost all control of this titan and it turned against her. The Khan Maykr fled, but the damage had already been done. The Icon of Sin was a creature of hell. Under her control, it followed Urdak's rules. However, when the Khan's hold over the creature had shattered, so too had the seal that stopped Hell's creatures from accessing this heavenly realm. To her luck, the Icon of Sin entered a portal behind it to Earth, but the Doomslayer still resided in her realm. As the seal had shattered, the Khan Maykr watched as her realm fell from grace. It had no power to sustain it, and demons flowed through. Hot on her trail, the Doomslayer fought past the demons and Maykr subservient to her, until eventually he discovered her. The Doomslayer had been betrayed by the Khan Maykr. She saw him as the chosen one prophesied to end her reign. He had been forged by Davoth's manipulation, a puppet for the Dark Lord's revenge. Despite her power as the almighty leader of the Maykr species, in a brutal fight, the Doomslayer proved himself to be stronger, and this Khan fell. In her final moments, the light sphere of the Khan Maykr ascended into the air and shattered. Her reign was over. The fall of the Khan Maykr had left what remained of her species in an uncertain position. This was the first time since their creation that they did not have a Khan to guide them, no father to help them, and Urdak had fallen as a result of Hell's access to this once holy realm. The Doomslayer did eventually kill the Dark Lord, and with it, every demon outside of Hell's borders fell with him, once again trapped within the Twisted Realm. But the damage had already destroyed everything that Urdak had once been. As for those of the Maykr that had survived this war, the Maykr Angels remained on the planets that their species had encountered. These Seraph remained in the Luminarium and waited for any to enter, and the Maykr drones waited to mature enough in order to cross between realms without harm. There were a few Maykr that appeared to have more power than others, that quite possibly knew of future events to come, but their identity and power is currently unknown. Essentially, as a result of the father's abandonment of his children and the Khan Mayk's corruption, the entire Maykr species had fallen from the powerful, holy, angelic beings that were depicted across the many worlds of the earthly realms into a species that may not even have a future. The transfiguration was an awful process to go through, and it now appeared to be a certainty for all living Maykr. At least that is what we know as of now. I know that the Doom community is pretty split about the stories of angels, demons, heaven, and hell. I like it as a background to the non-stop action we experience in the latest Doom games, the altered story of how the angels are actually the villains and that the Dark Lord, in a way, was a victim. He grieved the loss of his first creations and his makers turned against him. I am hoping that we get an announcement for a new Doom game soon because that ending after the death of Davoth was a cliffhanger. The seraph that put the Doomslayer back into a sarcophagus appear to be of some importance in the universe. Only time will tell. That was everything I wanted to say really, so this was the lore and story behind the Maykr species in the Doom series. If you enjoyed this, then please leave a like, drop a comment below, and even share it with another Doom fan. If you disagreed or generally disliked this, then also let me know in the comments and leave a dislike. I appreciate you watching this video regardless of how you felt about it. If you want to see more content, then please subscribe. As usual, I would like to thank my amazing gold tier patrons and channel members who got access to this video a little bit early. Jonas, Lewis, Queen Arby, Fluffy the Dragon, Chicken Guy 791, Ruben Mendoza, Duke, Toadnut, Oren X, Azu, Karatana, AJ, Verona, Comfy, BG Games, Apravis, and Arnis. Now, what did you think of this lore? What do you think is next for the Maykr species? And what would you like to see next? This is where our story ends. Check back next week for a new one.